Life is full of firsts. First words, first steps, your first Christmas. But if you think about it, each season is really filled with a whole bunch of firsts each and every year. Hello again and welcome back to Wisconsin's Outdoor Explorer podcast. I am your host, Jason. Imagine it's mid-November. I know that's tough because we're coming into spring and getting out of winter, but just for a second, imagine it's mid-November. The air is cold and crisp, the wind is picking up, and you decide you need to put on a warm hat and gloves. The clouds are gray and flat, and there's even that little bit of dampness in the air. You know what I'm talking about when we get that little bit of dampness, little bit of moisture in the air. And then you see it. It floats down from the sky ever so slightly and lands on your sleeve or your coat and disappears. A smile comes across your face, and you feel the need to tell anyone who listens that the first snowflake of winter has arrived. I think many of us get really excited to see that first flake of snow. But I was thinking, why? Why do we always get excited about that first snowflake of the year? Does it invoke something from our youth about snow days and days off from school and having fun with our friends? Or do you get excited when you see that, knowing that soon the lakes will be frozen over and the snowmobile trails will be opening and you can do all those fun winter activities that you've waited a full season to do? I don't know. And whatever the reason, most of us get excited about that first snowflake. I'm one of them. If it's because I've got kids or whatever it is, I get excited about seeing that first snowflake. But what about spring? Spring offers us many firsts for anyone who loves getting outdoors. And I think sometimes we just seemingly overlook those firsts and brush them off as if they've been here all year long. On today's podcast, I want to talk to you about some of those firsts of springs. Some of those things that just say, this is spring and this is the first time we're going to do them this spring. And it might not be the only time we do these things, but there's always just something special about tackling that first thing of spring, I always think. And especially in the outdoors, again, we're in winter and we're indoors a lot more than you are obviously in the spring or the summer. And to experience those firsts of spring to me is just really special. And I want to share with you some of my favorite things and maybe open your eyes to how kind of important these firsts of spring are for Wisconsin's Outdoor Explorer. One of my favorites is the first day in spring that I can shut off my furnace and open my windows. There's just something about having that fresh spring air flow through the house, push all that stale air from winter out, and just feel that breeze going through the house. It really is that first sign for me that says winter's over, spring is here, and you get that whole spring freshness, clean feeling that you've been missing for the last few months. And to open them windows up and really to shut that furnace off, that's a big one, I think, for a lot of us, is you can finally turn the furnace off and knowing maybe you're going to have to turn it back on a few days later even. It's just nice to be able to shut it off for a day, open the windows, and hear the birds singing outside your window, to let the outdoors back into your house and just freshen everything up. And I think this is something that I think is unique to Wisconsin, that we get to open the windows and get that fresh air in. And it's not that stale winter air anymore. So that's one of my first favorite things to do in the spring. And it's one of those I think we overlook. Everybody, just kind of does it and doesn't really think about it. But if you think about it, that's that first time you get to open up the house and let all that fresh spring air in. My next one, some of you may not enjoy this one as much as others, but mowing the yard for the first time of year is always I don't know. It's just kind of got that special feeling every time I do that. Now don't get me wrong. I know that by late summer or early fall, you can get kind of tired of mowing the lawn depending on what kind of season it is. We had a few seasons a few years ago where it seemed like we were mowing lawn almost twice a week because it was wet and it was cool and the grass was just loving it. But that first cut, I just love how fresh that cut is, how it smells, and how great the lawn looks. And I always think it's funny because I look out at my lawn right now and it just kind of reminds me of a dog with a shaggy coat, and it's just in desperate need of a good trim. You know the dog I'm talking about. It's those dogs that just, their hair is just a mess and they just need a good grooming to clean them up and freshen them up. That's to me what that first lawn cutting of the year does. It just takes that lawn and says, okay, it's clean, it's fresh now, and you can smell the grass clippings. And I don't know about you, if it's just me, because I get used to it after the summer gets going, but I always think that first cut of the year is the strongest smelling one. You get that nice fresh smell of cut grass, and I don't ever remember smelling it anymore after that. If it's just because, okay, now it's here, there's something special about that first fresh cut lawn and getting the lawn looking nice and groomed in those early spring days. For you farmers out there, the first time of spring, when the moldboards hit the dirt and turn it over, announcing the beginning of planting season. I don't know what it is again, if it's a Wisconsin thing or if it's just living out in the country or what it is, but that smell of freshly turned over soil just screams, this is Wisconsin and this is how we do things here. For those of you who haven't experienced it, when plowing season starts and field work starts for the season, take a trip out into your rural areas and just roll the windows down in your car and you can smell just that freshly turned soil and how it just got its own little smell to it. And again, it's one of those things that you only get this in the springtime and you only get this when they first turn over the soil and wake that soil up for the year. It's just one of those things that is just, to me, is very unique to Wisconsin. I mean, I know down in the southern states, they're already doing their field work and stuff, but they haven't been sitting on a blanket of snow for the last few months. So that snow is gone. And as soon as them tractors can get out there in them fields, it's really kind of a neat smell. I think that just, like I said, that it says that's Wisconsin. The other thing is I kind of like watching as the tractors go through and turning over that new soil, and you just see how the birds are just attacking that soil, getting in there and getting up all the insects and things that are turning up for them. Wisconsin is rooted in farming, and seeing them working in the fields for the first time in spring, that just always brings a smile to my face. Now, speaking of soil, getting back into the garden for the first time in the spring is always fun. We got out in our garden a little bit here last week, and there's just something about getting out there and tilling and prepping the soil for this year's garden that just, I don't know, it just makes you feel good. And it's good to be outside. It was a warm day when we were out there, and you feel like you've accomplished something, and you're kind of right in it. Your hands are dirty. You're thinking about what you're going to plant, and you can plant a few things that are a little bit hardier in this colder weather. But, for the most part, it's just getting out there and getting that garden prepped and starting to turn up that soil and get your, peat moss or whatever you're going to put out in it. To me, it's that first thing of spring when you can finally get out in the garden and do some work. And then it's always fun for me and my wife to kind of plan what we're going to plant, what we're going to try to grow this year, if we're going to try anything new. It's always fun to see what survived the winter. My wife likes to plant a lot of herbs, and it's always fun to see them coming back. And especially our rhubarb. We've got a raised bed with rhubarb in it, and there's just something about seeing that rhubarb pop up from the ground for that first time that, again, it's something that I think we kind of take for granted sometimes about getting outdoors and experiencing this stuff, that these firsts are important, and they just let us know that the growing season has started and spring is here and we're ready to get out there and get going. And while we're on the topic of plants, the one thing that I always love is to see tulips emerge for the first time. They're one of my favorite flowers. To see them pop up out of the ground finally for the year is always, that always brightens my day and makes me happy, makes me smile to see that. I know it won't be too much longer, and they're going to be displaying their beautiful flowers, and they'll be out for everybody to enjoy. And, we have a variety of other plants that emerge from the ground. We've got irises that we plant. It's always fun taking daily trips around our yard to check on their progress, to see how much things are growing, to see if things are coming back. We've got raspberry bushes that are starting to leaf out now. So it's always fun to see that stuff emerge from that winter sleep and into springtime. So enjoy those firsts, especially when the plants start coming back. Enjoy what you're seeing and take that time to get out and walk around. I think that's something that we kind of take for granted a little bit, or we don't put much thought into that. Yeah, it's fun to get out there and hike and fish and hunt and all that, but getting outdoors is more than just that. Getting outdoors is experiencing these firsts, experiencing how nature changes around us and learning to appreciate how it is changing and not to take that for granted, to learn from it and be energized by it. I mean, that's one thing I get with all these spring firsts is I get energized when I see things like that. I mean, I'm looking outside at my lawn right now going, man, if it was a little drier, I'm going to be out there mowing lawn, and that first time mowing lawn is just, you're outside, you're doing something, and that's what Wisconsin Outdoor Explorer is about. It's not just about hiking and fishing and all this. It's just getting outside and enjoying what's happening around you. That's why, to me, spring firsts are so important, because a lot of us don't get outside as much as we can in the wintertime. Get out now and start seeing those firsts and enjoying them is really important. It just makes you feel better. It makes you feel good about making it through the winter. It's a reward in a way for making it through the winter, to see all these things emerge and know that you kind of did it together. As these plants are reemerging, you're reemerging, and you're doing it together, and you're getting out there and you're enjoying everything Wisconsin has to offer. Like that first snowflake of the winter season, enjoy these firsts of spring. There are so many that I didn't mention, and so many that mean something to different people. Maybe it's the first time you pull the grill out, or the first time you ride your motorcycle, or if you've got a classic car, maybe it's the first time you get your classic car out and take it for a drive. The first time you put your boat in the water, or the first time you head out with the camper with the family for the weekend. Whatever first time thing you enjoy about spring, celebrate it and make a big deal out of it. After all, that snowflake only comes once a year, and look at how we celebrate that. Celebrate these spring firsts each and every time you go out as one of Wisconsin's outdoor explorers. Thanks again for joining me. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. Drop me a line, leave me a comment. It's always great to hear from you about the show and what you like about the show, and things that you'd like to hear me talk about on the show, or even guests that you think would be great to have on the show. So don't be afraid to reach out through email or through Messenger on Facebook, and let's connect, and let's keep growing this podcast so that we can all be one of Wisconsin's outdoor explorers. Thanks again for joining me. I'm your host, Jason, and I will talk to you again next week. Thanks for listening to the Wisconsin's Outdoor Explorer podcast. For more great information about being an outdoor explorer, visit our website at wisconsinsoutdoorexplorer.com. Be sure to check out the blog page and follow us on social media. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.